Hello. So, in this video, we're going to talk about Oladipo Agboluaje's play, The Christ of Coldharbour Lane. Now, this is a play that's really interested in the role of religion in Black British communities. It's set in Brixton, Brixton being, I guess, maybe a not bad comparison is like Harlem in New York City. Brixton is kind of the London equivalent of Harlem, in the sense both that it has a long history as a predominantly Black neighborhood, and in recent decades, maybe the past decade and a half at most, Brixton has undergone some significant gentrification. And this actually comes up right at the beginning of the play. We have a character named Omotunde, who's basically just called Omo, and Donna. Omotunde has just, Omo. Omo has just gotten out of prison. Donna is a sort of missionary type for a church called The Mission. She's not yet a full minister, I think is what they... let me find it. I forget what exactly their term is. I think it's minister, but I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, minister. Sorry, I spent an inordinate amount of time on that. So Donna is on the road to becoming a minister. And one of the things that she has set up is a program that would preach the mission's message in prisons. And that's how they've converted Omo. And he's basically come out, it's worth noting, he's a true believer in many ways. Not in the mission as such, but in the divine, and in a way in his own sort of divinity as a potential spiritual leader for Brixton. But I'm going to talk more about that in just a second. But Donna sort of initially sets this scene because she, again, has met Omo as he's getting out of prison, and she says, anyway, Brixton's gone all Tony since you've been away. It's all the new money moving in. The high street's like any other high street now, except for that buzz. That's one thing they'll never bleach out of Brixton. Doesn't matter how many wine bars and patisseries they put up, you know you're in Brixton. So this is our setting. Brixton is a multicultural, multi-ethnic area. But again, traditionally, a lot of African immigrants, a lot of Caribbean immigrants, especially people who came over during the Windrush generation in the 1950s and 60s, post-World War II, basically. A lot of these people settled in Brixton and sort of built up communities with Jamaican cultural elements, or Barbadian cultural elements, Nigerian cultural elements, South African cultural elements. So you have this sort of mishmash of cultures, but it's also, again, a predominantly, historically, for the past several decades, it was a predominantly Black area. That also means those sort of blending of cultures and those different traditions mean that there's a lot of religious competition because you have people from so many different backgrounds in the Caribbean, in West Africa, South Africa, East Africa. And they bring different flavors of Christianity, different flavors in some cases of Islam, um, religions inspired by voodoo, hoodoo, traditional African beliefs, etc., etc. And all of these things sort of compete because one of the other things you have in Brixton is a very lively street culture. People go out and they do stuff in the streets. And I mean, this is a very urban thing. This is a very common thing in major cities. You have people who hang out on the steps out front of their houses and just chat. You have a lot of street performers. You have a lot of like street festivals, things like this. And one of the things that Agboluaje talks about in The Christ of Coldharbour Lane is how much religious competition there is. So Donna has these statistics about, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, so she has these statistics about how many religious messages Brixtonians hear preached to them in the streets every day, week, etc. She says here, our survey shows that Brixtonians are preached to on average 12 times a day. They learn of a new religion twice a month. They hear preaching from 6 denominations every day, and that's just between Coldharbour Lane and Electric Avenue. And so this is one of the things, is the mission and Omo are struggling for converts, and they're struggling in this very densely packed religious space, where a lot of different religious speakers, leaders, thinkers, etc. are spreading their own messages. Now, Omo deeply believes in, again, not so much the mission as an individual church, but in a form of his own divinity. And not in an egotistical way. This is kind of the interesting, striking thing about Omo in this play, is it's not, I am Christ, therefore I should be worshipped. It's, I am Christ. If you recognize that the material world is not what's important, but the spiritual world and spiritual freedom is what's important, then you transcend the needs of this world, at which point you can assume a sort of power. So this is a kind of revolutionary theological message, but it's also not 100% clear how the revolution is meant to occur. For Omo, this seems to be primarily a spiritual revolution, but what the people of Brixton want is a material revolution. And at times it seems that Omo is offering that, and at times he's not. So it's a difficult sort of thing to navigate. But Omo actually takes issue with the mission for its promises of material wealth for its adherents. So at one point in the play, Donna and Omo are out trying to convert people on the street. And they're talking about the approach that they're taking, because basically Donna is promising people material wealth. And Omo says, thinking about it has made me understand the good news approach. Donna says, so what's the problem? Omo says, first you were luring the vulnerable. Donna says, excuse me, I was not luring the vulnerable. They're the ones who need to hear the good news the most. You said you understood. Omo says, and now you're attracting the new money, those who are gentrifying Brixton. Donna says, brother Omo. Omo says, you offer them a conscience-free life. Donna says, how do you think we raise money for the prisoners program? If not for our high-income members giving generously, we would not have met, and you would not have been saved. Omo says, our Father willed that I should be saved through you. And Donna says, exactly. But we live in the world. Our Father knows that, and he rewards us in the world. If you calculate Abraham's net worth in today's terms, Bill Gates couldn't touch him. Almost says, the rewards that the Father gives us are different. Donna says, to those who have, even more shall be added. Almost says, meaning the rich can make money guilt-free, while the poor get poorer and must beg charity from the rich. So, Omo is clearly aware of the financial realities under which an organization like the Mission works, and he rejects them. The Mission promises its adherents that they will get money, that they will get housing, that they will get cars, that they will get stuff. And Omo rejects this this approach, which turns out to kind of backfire on him, because at one point he does actually perform a miracle where he helps a crippled woman who had been an Olympic athlete to not only walk, but to run again. He sort of channels the power of God as a sign for the people. But one of the things that I find really fascinating about this episode in particular is that Omo insists that the miracle itself is not important. The miracle is just a sign, but it is not in itself important. It's important for what it signifies about the power of God. And I think that's actually a really important point about miracles. But when Omo does this miracle, he starts gathering adherents. But the problem is that what the adherents want is money, cars, winning lottery numbers, these kinds of material things. And Omo he's trying to convince them that this is not what it's about. Religion is not about giving you the things that you want in the world. It's about some kind of spiritual revolution. And at one point, we get this, I think, very, very direct and really important set of statements. Citizen 6, who's one of the random group of people who have gathered and started taking an interest in Omo's ministry, says, a good life in this world, that's all we want. That's what I'd call a revolution. And Omo's response to this is a biblical parody. They cannot pour new wine into old skins. And so this is one of the interesting things. Omo believes that he can lead a spiritual revolution with the people of Brixton, and that through this, again, sort of theological revolution, through this sort of theological change, they can take over and remake the world. It is a sort of apocalyptic or messianic conceptualization. He regularly talks about the New Jerusalem and building a new foundation for the world and things like this. But the people of Brixton want material goods, and Omo is not prepared to offer them those material goods. And it becomes kind of a sticking point for him in terms of how he is conceptualizing the divine work that he's doing versus what the people want from him. Now, alongside this, there's a whole big storyline with Maria Maudlin, who is a stripper that Omo falls in love with because he identifies in her something pure and divine and something like this. What exactly, he struggles to conceptualize what it is he sees in her, but he believes that she can become the foundation for the new world that he's building. And at the end of the play, or toward the end of the play, a sort of upper class, maybe upper middle class guy who has been sent to Brixton to sort of do a report he's a journalist. He's been sent to do a piece about Brixton. He contacts his sort of upper class government affiliated contacts and lets them know that Omo is doing miracles and that this is sort of leading to unrest in Brixton. And so we get this guy who seems to be some sort of government assassin named Jason, who comes, and actually he kills Maria Maudlin at one point. Like, he stabs her to death, and then Omo brings her back to life. And then Jason stabs Omo to death. But the play ends, actually, with somebody else stepping up. Robbie, let me look up his last name. Robbie Wedderburn stepping up as sort of Omo's posthumous successor, along with Maria, and they sort of lead this revolutionary movement. And what we find out in the last portion is that all over the country, all over the United Kingdom, there are these revolutionary outbreaks. And they are sort of building a new society, theoretically free of the social inequality, the racism, the structural violence of the old society. And what we end with is Maria has a baby in a pram, and she addresses the baby at the end. So Donna tells her to be careful, and Maria says, "I will. Won't I, Babatunde?" And the translation in the footnote here from the Yoruba is that Babatunde means the father returns. So in this sense, Omo is right, because his child with Maria is figured at the end of the play as sort of born alongside this new world, this new Jerusalem.